Welcome to Coffee, Culture, and the Capital with Sophia and Greg. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. If you are watching and not just listening, you'll see Greg and I are together in person
Ta-da!
today. So look at that. Happy Valentine's Day. We've had a great Valentine's Day at the state capitol. There's been a great press conference, and we're going to dive into all that. If you saw the title of this episode, you'll know that we are talking about 3 different bills that 2 California legislators have introduced that are all about protecting women and children and parental rights. So we're going to do a little deep dive into those bills. If you watched the press conference, then you would kind of hear why we needed these bills, but maybe not so much as what the bills are actually going to do. And so we're going to dive into that. If you haven't checked out the press conference, once you're done watching this, you can head to our Facebook or YouTube page where you can watch the press conference with some amazing testimonies. Aaron Friday was one of the leaders in this, did a phenomenal job putting this together. But with that, Greg, what do you have to drink for your coffee since it's coffee culture in the capital?
We had to run to Starbucks and, pick up my usual, what do I call it? I don't even know.
Do you get a caramel macchiato?
You did. Yes, I did. That's what I got.
Caramel macchiato.
And you got a dirty chai.
No, different this time. But you do. That's my normal podcast order. I got a cold brew with a little bit of almond milk and some cinnamon on top. Obviously, Starbucks is always the last choice. But unfortunately, in downtown Sacramento, if you're ever visiting downtown Sacramento, most of the coffee shops are closed by noon.
That's right. Everybody leaves.
Yes. So with that, into the real stuff. We have been talking about, and maybe I've been talking about endlessly, this whole situation of boys and girls sports, men and women's sports.
Right.
It's not a shock to anyone that it's happening now. Unfortunately, we've seen it happen time after time. It's truly happening up and down the state of California.
Right.
And in California, it's been law for over 10 years now to allow boys into girls sports. We saw that through AB 1266. There's some different ed codes. And California has kind of been, I feel like, the ringleader on pushing this gender ideology and putting the feelings of confused boys over the safety of girls. And we finally have an assembly member that said no more.
That's right. This is kind of the second bill on this topic that's been introduced. The first one, Assemblywoman Sanchez, simply dealt with high school sports. CIF said no more boys in girls sports. This bill was introduced by Assemblyman Bill Asaley, and it is really going to repeal the original bill that was passed. It was AB 1266. It was voted and passed back in 2012. Went into effect the next year. And what it more or less said, it says any school programs that are separated by sex, those are no longer going to be separated by sex. They're going to be separated by gender identity, right? Which means, how do you know what somebody's gender identity is? Well, that's completely up to the feelings and decisions of the individual. And so if a girl decides and says, today I feel like a boy, then that's how she's got to be treated. If a boy says today he feels like a girl, then, or even feels anything other than a boy, he gets to be on the team that makes him feel most comfortable. And so I think when this first happened, people thought, well, how many kids are actually going to use this and do this? This isn't going to affect my child. There's so few kids identifying as transgender. This isn't going to affect me. Well, now that the schools have been teaching kids about gender identity over the last, increasingly over the last 5 years, 6 years, more and more kids are coming out as something other than their actual sex. And they're wanting to participate on girls' teams. And this is happening in most districts. Every district, every school has got kids who are now identifying as transgender. So this bill is simply going to go back to what the law originally was. And I'm looking at the fact sheet that the legislator handed out. And it simply says it's going to amend the education code to clarify that participation in sex-segregated school athletic programs must be based on biological sex rather than gender identity. And this is not just going to include teams. It's also including school facilities, including restrooms, locker rooms, showers, right, that are separated by sex. And folks, this is actually happening. What's the point of separating the sexes if you don't separate them by male and female? Currently, boys can completely undress in front of girls, and there is nothing the girls can do. They're told they need counseling. They're the ones with the issue. If they aren't accepting of this new inclusive way of looking at the world, then they've got the problem. It's insane, right? In any other context, any other work environment, it would be sexual harassment. It would be a complete violation of people's privacy. So that bill is introduced. Yes. We don't quite got a bill number yet, but it will be, the bill number will come up very soon.
And I do want to touch on something you said, Greg. You made a great point that this isn't just a one-off situation of boys and girls sports. It is truly happening up and down the state of California. But a lot of people like to make the argument or like to say, well, there's not that many boys and girls sports. There's only a couple. And if you're wondering, how do I respond to that? How do I push back on that? Well, it's simple. One is one too many. And let's break it down. I played soccer. If there's 25 girls on my soccer team and one is actually a boy, now 24 girls are being impacted. We play 14 games a season, let's say. Now 349 girls are being impacted.
Right.
So one is one too many. People like to think like, oh, it's just one. No, and think about the girl that now didn't make the team of 25 and got cut because of the one boy. So it is impacting, one boy in girls sports is impacting hundreds and hundreds of girls. So don't let that be the reason that people try to push back. But again, it's not just one boy. We know it's happening all over the place. But with that, kind of on the similar topic, not sports, but transgender ideology has been absolutely rampant in school and education. That's no shock to California parents listening. We've seen even the California legislators last year really fight to continue to push transgender ideology in education.
Right.
And we have a new assemblywoman, Leticia Castillo, from District 58, Assembly District 58, and she decided to introduce a bill to kind of protect education and what children are being taught.
Right. I mean, ultimately, parents are the ones who should be in charge of deciding how to raise and educate kids. And at the very earliest ages, kids who can't quite comprehend what it means to be a boy or a girl, who are very easily influenced by a teacher, a leader, and could easily get confused with these whole concepts that are being brought up about being trapped in the wrong body. How do you know if you're a boy or a girl? Well, you know, if you can't trust your biology, they will trust the things that you like. Or do you do things that boys generally like? Or do you like things that girls generally like? They're basing their identity on that. And that's completely insane. But it's being done. And so this particular bill, it's AB 600. And what this bill will do, it will allow parents or guardians to opt their children out of any school curriculum, instruction, lessons, presentations, assemblies that discuss or involve transgender concepts, as well as any related tests or questionnaires or surveys that your student might be asked to participate in. So really it puts the parents back in charge, that they can now opt out of these lessons if they don't want their kid to be exposed to this. We already do this for sex ed. There's no reason parents shouldn't be able to opt their children out of lessons that completely contradict the fundamentals of what they're teaching their own children. Now, just an example how this was actually happening in practice, there is a school district down south in San Diego County. They have a buddy program where a fifth grader is paired up with a kindergartner, and once a week, those two get together and they read books together and they they just become pals. And the kindergartners love it, and the fifth graders, enjoy having a younger brother, and having an influence on them. Well, the teachers decided that the fifth graders were going to read the kindergartners a book about gender identity. And the fifth graders were teaching the kindergartners to pick a gender for the day, and pick what gender they were, right? Some parents of the fifth grader found out that this was happening simply because the boy was so upset that he was forced to tell the little kindergartner about this. And they wanted to tell the school, hey, you need to let us opt out of stuff like this. We want to be involved in this mentor program. My son wants to be involved, but not if it involves him training other kids in the gender ideology. Well, the school refused, and so there now is a lawsuit because the school is under the impression that parents cannot opt their kids out of topics around gender identity. And so that's the kind of issue that this bill is hopefully going to deal with. We'll see how the Democrats react to it, but it's about time somebody brings up the topic.
Absolutely. And then this bill, oh my goodness, this is a story we've talked about on CFC's articles. We've shared videos when this all first went down. It's a truly heartbreaking story of a California mom losing custody of her daughter because the daughter thought she was a boy, and the state thought the mom was basically abusive for not affirming that she was a boy. And this is Yaeli Martinez, and she unfortunately jumped and kneeled down in front of a train and took her own life. And my goodness, today at that press conference, Abigail Martinez, Yaeli's mom, shared this story, and it's heartbreaking every time I hear it. I think this happened, or the story kind of came out about this in 2022, I believe. And it was right when I joined the CFC staff. And I remember like sitting and reading through it and like hearing what Abigail had to say, and just like my heart absolutely broke for her. So with that to say, Greg, maybe you can share a little bit more about Yaeli's story, but we have now an introduction to AB 579, also by Assemblywoman Leticia Castillo, and it's Yaeli's Law.
Right. So this is starting happening more and more across the state. The legislators up here believe if you are a parent and you will not encourage your young child to embrace the gender identity he thinks he is, if you tell your little boy who thinks he's a girl, if you don't affirm his female identity, they consider you to be a danger to that child, a danger to their psychological health, simply on the same level as being an abuser. And so this bill is going to prevent that from happening. It clarifies, I'm reading from their fact sheet here, is that it clarifies that certain parental decisions regarding gender identity do not constitute child abuse, neglect, or endangerment. So what it does is it amends the California code that says to affirm that a child's using a child's legal name or referring to them by the pronouns regarding their own sex, or treating them according to their biological sex, or refusing gender transitioning or medical transitioning of a child is not going to be considered child abuse, right? Because that is happening. Parents who say, I love my child, but son, no, we're not going to give you estrogen. Or telling their daughter who thinks there's something wrong with her body and thinks she's really a boy, and they say no to a double mastectomy. They can now say no without fear that the California Social Services isn't going to take their child away because and accuse them of abuse. And folks, I know a lot of you might think, that's not really happening, is it? Folks, it is happening. A lot of it's being done by judges. Judges are giving free reign to decide who's the best parent, and kids are learning that if their parent won't give them the testosterone, they can complain to their teachers and their administrators, and those administrators can call CPS and have their own parents declared incompetent or a threat to them. And so this bill is going directly after that. And the individual that came to testify and tell her story was Abigail Martinez. She is a mother who lost custody of her 16-year-old daughter, Yaley, to the state because she refused to affirm her daughter's male identity. Her daughter was put into foster care. She was allowed to go on testosterone. And sadly, her daughter eventually, distressed over her situation and her body hurting so much and her unable to be reunited with her family, she committed herself by laying in front of a train. And it's a terribly tragic story. And it's all the fault of California's schools and its legal system, who is stripping young, confused kids away from their parents. And it needs to be fixed. And I'm so happy that we now have a legislator willing to stand up and expose this. And I hopefully the Democrats are going to allow a hearing. My fear is that they won't allow this to be debated. And so, but we'll see what happens. This is just the start.
Yeah, and we will keep you guys all up to date. We had this situation happen in the past where we had some great bills introduced and the Democrats did not allow it to even get a hearing.
Right.
And so we will make sure to keep you guys informed, to let you know when these bills get assigned a committee. We'll let you know the committee members and who the chair of the committee is, so you can call them and urge them to schedule a hearing, and that you want these bills to get through and pass through the committee. Just because, these bills were introduced today, but that doesn't mean they're law. They're just bills that were introduced, and they have to go through the committees, and they have to go through both the Assembly and the Senate. So we will keep you guys up to date on these bills, as well as a handful of others. If you are like, I want to read more, or I want to see the bill language itself, head to californianfamily.org. You will see we have a bill watch list where you can see all the bills we're watching, whether we support or we're in opposition, as well as head to californianfamily.org and check out our different blog posts where we'll write about different bills in depth. But we are here to keep you guys up to date. So again, head to californianfamily.org, sign up for the newsletter, follow us on social media. That's where you will get the constant updates about who you need to call, where these bills are at, and what is going on.
Sounds good. And I know you should look on our website, because this is just another effect of the Trump administration, who is calling out all of these issues, both the mutilating bodies and testosterone being given to minors. We now have the LA Children's Hospital has now reversed its treatments and no longer giving any new patients, minors, testosterone, puberty blockers. They've stopped doing the surgeries. They're now going after CIF, investigating them for violating Title IX. The federal government is finally enforcing federal law. And so we are very happy to see that's having an effect on the legislature up here. And the citizens of California can't simply rely on what's happening in the federal government. This is an opportunity for us. We must stand up and make our voices heard and push back on this stuff. This has all happened because there's been too much silence. Too many people have just been quiet, seen it happening, and said nothing. Maybe they thought we were totally outnumbered, but we have a little respite here while the federal government is on our side. So we need to take advantage of it and push forward.
Absolutely. And with that, we will see you all next time.